A lot of writers ask me how to introduce the character's goal, motivations, and conflicts early on in the book. Do you spell it out? Do you just lay some breadcrumbs and hope the reader figures it out? It can be a delicate dance in terms of figuring out how to do that. And that's the topic of this week's Step by Step Write With Me video. And even better, I'm going to show you by showing you how I did it in the book itself. I'm Shirley Jump, a New York Times, USA Today, Publishers Weekly, Wall Street Journal, and Amazon best-selling author of 85 books in 24 countries. I've been teaching writing for 30 years and can't wait to show you what I know. Welcome to week 7 of Step by Step Write a Book with Me. If you've missed any of the other videos, I encourage you to go back to the playlist and you can watch how we started this book from beginning to end. And a note, my audio is evolving. So I am brand new to this whole video recording thing. I have no idea what I'm doing, and thankful to some people that are experts in this industry, like Clem Harrod at Clemco, who told me that my microphone was awful and to get a better one. So I have a better one, and I'm hoping that the audio is much better. I'm learning as I go here with you guys as I'm teaching you how to write a book. I know how to write a book. I don't necessarily know how to be a video creator. So bear with me on the audio part. Anyways, we're talking today about goal, motivation, and conflict and how to show it instead of tell it in the book. All of the characters should have a goal, motivation, and conflict. Remember, we talked about that concept of in media res, which means we're in the middle of their lives when we enter the book, and they have goals, motivations, and conflicts before the trouble even starts. Maybe it's to repair their marriage or get a raise, or get a new job or move to a new city. People are always having some kind of goal that they're going after, and so your characters on the very first page come into this book with other goals that they want to accomplish, other things that are going on in their lives. Then this trouble comes out of nowhere and changes everything for them and gives them a new goal. Let's say you have a dad who's losing his job, right? And he has to do everything he can to hold on to the job, because if he loses the job, they will lose the house. That's his motivation, because he can't pay the mortgage. The conflict is that he's not very good at his job. His boss doesn't like him. And so when the book starts, he's got a whole bunch of issues that he's dealing with. And so he is heads down trying to concentrate on doing his job. But then let's say a hitman comes out of nowhere and shows up at his house and attacks his family, and he's going to now be late for work. Well, obviously he has to deal with the hitman, but he is always going to be worrying, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. And then how am I going to pay the house? And I got to deal with this hitman and all of these things that are going on at once. So there's multiple plot lines in this character's head that we're juggling. Now, is he going to give a whole lot of thought to his job? No, he's really going to give a lot of thought to the immediate problem. But it will always be there on the outside, on the peripheral of the kind of things that he wants to do. So we already talked about chapter 1 before with Kara and how she's, driving in the rush hour traffic and trying to get to work. And she doesn't really have a goal on page 1. There's nothing really there to say what her goal is. But on page 2, the phone call comes in from the Barron Falls Police Department, and she has multiple layers of goals in this scene. The first one is to solve what happened to her sister, which has been a 12-year odyssey, and she has no idea what happened. The second one is to continue to go after this story that she's working on for her job. She's a reporter of some kind. And then the third one is to kind of keep herself on track. And so that whole thing about I'm not drinking today, that's her internal goal of trying to keep herself on track. The cops call, and this right off the bat, she's thinking maybe it's about my sister, but it's not. It's about her father. So here's yet another problem that she has to deal with. So her goal in this scene is to deal with this major problem so she can concentrate on her other goal at the opening of the book, which is this story that she's trying to go after. So I showed you the scene last week with her dad and her picking up her dad. And then after she does that, she gets a call. And the call is from a source for the story that she's working on. Now you can see that I've got something there in caps because I don't know what else is going to happen here. But there's the second goal for that scene, that she needs to get that story out for the newspaper that she's working for. Then we go into the second scene of chapter 1, and here we are at work. This is her at work. She's going in, putting in extra hours to try to figure out this story and keep her job, basically. I haven't figured out why, so those layers aren't quite in there yet. The motivation's not there yet. But there's not a spelled out goal. I must get this story in order to keep my job. We see her going into work. We see her there after hours, and we realize that, she's working hard for something. You can see in those pages that the goal is not spelled out. Like, it doesn't say, my goal is to blah, 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 because then that reads like a book report. Nobody wants to read or write a book report. Am I right? So instead, it is layered like a parfait, where Kara's actions, her reactions, and her dialogue all feed into this goal and show the goal as opposed to telling. Telling is saying, my goal is to do whatever. Showing, however, is in her actions, staying in the newsroom late at night, working overtime, her reactions, her thoughts about the story and the way that she reacts to Nick, and the dialogue, the things that she says to Nick and the things that she does after that. So I want you to go back to whatever scene you're working on at home and try layering your character's goal in actions, reactions, and dialogue as opposed to just spelling it out, and see how that works for you. And then she has a coworker that she talks to a little bit, and then he gives her a while you're out note that says, hey, this lady from the factory called, and Kara realizes is that source that called her from the car. And so here's her source that she needs. And he's like, you're not going to be able to use that if she doesn't give her name. And Kara's right on it. She is texting on her phone. She is going after her job. She's going to take care of this and get this story. So boom, there's her goal. Her motivation is to keep her job and keep that star spot that she's got. And the conflict is all these other things that keep getting in the way. Her dad, her need to drink, the worries about her sister, the cops calling her. All of these other things are the conflicts that are keeping her from doing her job. And then just when she starts to make that text and contact that report, that source for her, this guy comes running in. And remember, I told you guys that I was going to put this in last week. The intern that works in the office comes in and says, the cops said they found, and her stomach fell about 30 stories and curled into a tight knot. And he says, a girl in the woods. And here is the real goal that's at the deep heart of who Kara is. Just like everybody else, she's juggling a job, she's juggling a family, she's juggling relationships. But deep down inside, she is the person who has been begging for answers. For more than a decade, I'd begged for answers. And now that the moment was huffing and puffing in front of me, I realized I didn't want answers at all, because she could hear that her sister is dead, and she doesn't really want to hear that. It's kind of better for her to leave it up in the air. Because you see there's her goal. I've wanted answers for more than a decade because I would need to know what happened, some kind of closure. But then once that moment comes, here's her conflict. She doesn't really want those answers because she doesn't want to hear the bad news. Nick asks the question instead, alive or dead? And Walter, the intern that comes in and tells her that, says she's alive. But we don't know if it's her sister or not, right? So there's a whole other concept that I'll talk about next week on ending on a hook. But there's her new problem, her new trouble, her new goal. Right there is that girl that she's got to go find and see if it's her sister. So everything that was important to Kara 5 minutes ago is no longer important because she has this new thing that has come into her life. And you will see next week when I talk about the hook and a little bit more about this girl, how that all of a sudden sends Kara down another path that is in, and here's a really great tip for how to make your book unique and compelling. The path that she goes down with the girl that comes out of the woods is in direct opposition to her goal of maintaining her job at the newspaper. So she's going to put herself in conflict with her own self and have to decide which thing she wants more. That creates a really tense, compelling plot where the stakes are always there and the character is always at a crossroads having to make some difficult decisions. It's something that I learned when I was plotting books way back when, and I was teaching, and I looked at the goals of my characters. And I realized that a lot of times I had opposite goals that would conflict with each other when I started mapping it out. So, what I want you to do, and this is what we're going to talk about a lot next week, is figure out what your character's goals are before the book starts, or right in the beginning, the ordinary world part, and then when the trouble starts. How do those goals change? And we're just talking this week about external goals. We'll get into more about internal goals down the road, like I talked about last week. I know that these are bigger concepts, and we're going to kind of piece them out a little bit at a time. So the external goals are the physical, tangible things that your character wants: keeping her job, helping her dad, the alcohol, all of those things are physical, tangible. You can touch them. What is your character's external goal at the beginning of the book? And then what becomes their external goal when the trouble shows up? Just kind of figure out those two things. And if you want extra credit, figure out the character's motivation and the conflicts that are standing in their way. These are all concepts we're going to talk about in coming weeks. So keep coming back and subscribe to the playlist for step by step. And we'll keep covering all of these topics for you.